Happy Wednesday! It is Wacky Hat Day today for our Spirit Week, and so I have brought a couple of my favorite hats. I have right here my fireman hat. It might be a little too small for me, but that is A-okay. And, of course, I have a Colorado hat. Gotta have a Colorado hat, you know what I mean? And then I have my little floppy hat here. It makes me feel like I'm going on a picnic. So I hope you guys are going to be wearing your wacky hats today or any sort of hat. And I am here once again to read some lovely, beautiful, wonderful Harry Potter. Miss J.K. Rowling is amazing, and I'm so glad that she's letting us read it online, okay? So we were reading yesterday, and there has been another student attacked because of the Chamber of Secrets. This time Harry was found right by the student. Remember, it was Justin Felch-Flitchy who was the student that Harry had the run-in with the snake, because we learned that Harry can speak Parseltongue. And so now Harry has gone upstairs with Professor McGonagall, and he has finally found where Dumbledore lives, okay? So I'm excited to see what happens, if Harry will be possibly get in trouble for this, or what might happen, okay? So remember, chapter 12, it is called the Polyjuice Potion. Has a really good picture right there, and it's going to be a good one. Alrighty? They stepped off the stone staircase at the top, and Professor McGonagall rapped on the door. It opened slightly, and they entered. Professor McGonagall told Harry to wait and left him there alone. Harry looked around. One thing was certain. Of all the teacher offices Harry had visited so far this year, Dumbledore's was by far the most interesting. If he hadn't been scared out of his wits that he was about to be thrown out of school, he would have been very pleased to have a chance to look around it. It was large and beautiful, and it was a circular room full of funny little noises. A number of curious silver instruments stood on spindle-legged tables, whirling and emitting little puffs of smoke. The walls were covered with portraits of old headmasters and headmistresses, of all of whom were snoozing gently in their frames. There was also an enormous claw-footed desk, and sitting on a shelf behind it, a shabby, tattered wizard's hat, the sorting hat. Remember, that's what Harry had to put on the first year? Harry hesitated. He cast a wary eye around the sleeping witches and wizards on the walls. Surely it couldn't hurt if he took the hat down and tried it on again, just to see, just to make sure it had put him in the right house. He walked quietly around the desk, lifted the hat off. Oh my gosh, speaking of hat day, Harry's about to put on the sorting hat! Lifted the hat from its shelf and lowered it slowly onto his head. It was much too large and slipped down over his eyes, just as it had done the last time he'd put it on. Harry stared at the black inside of the hat, waiting. Then a small voice in his ear said, "Be in your bonnet, Harry Potter." Yes, Harry muttered. Sorry to bother you, I wanted to ask." "You've been wondering whether I put you in the right house," said the hat smartly. "Yes, you were particularly difficult to place, but I stand by what I said before." Harry's heart leapt. "You would have done well in Slytherin." Harry's stomach plummeted. He grabbed the point of the hat and pulled it off. It hung limply in his hand, grubby and faded, and Harry pushed it back onto the shelf, feeling sick. "You're wrong," he said aloud to the still and silent hat. It didn't move, and Harry backed away watching it. Then a strange, gagging noise behind him made him wheel around. He wasn't alone. Standing on a golden perch behind the door was a discreet-looking bird that resembled a half-plucked turkey. Harry stared at it, and the bird looked balefully back, making its gagging noises again. Harry thought it looked very ill. Its eyes were dull, and even as Harry watched, a couple more feathers fell out of its tail. Harry was just thinking that all he needed was for Dumbledore's pet bird to die while he was alone in the office with it when the bird burst into flames. Harry yelled in shock and backed away from the desk. He looked feverishly around in case there was a glass of water somewhere, but he couldn't see one. The bird, meanwhile, had become a fireball. It gave one loud shriek a next second, and there was nothing but a smoldering pile of ash on the floor. The office door opened. Dumbledore came in, looking very somber. "Professor," Harry gasped, "your bird! I couldn't do anything, he just caught on fire!" "About time, too," he said. "He's been looking dreadful for days. I've been telling him to get a move on." He chuckled at the stunned look on Harry's face. "Fox is a phoenix, Harry. Phoenixes burst into flames when it's time for them to die and are reborn from ashes. Watch him." Harry looked back to see a tiny, wrinkled, newborn bird poke its head out of the ashes. It was quite as ugly as the old one. "It's a shame you had to see him on a burning day," said Dumbledore, seating himself behind his desk. He's really very handsome most of the times. Wonderful red and gold plumage. Fascinating creatures, phoenixes. They can carry immensely heavy loads, and their tears have healing powers, and they make highly faithful pets. In the shock of Fawkes catching fire, Harry had forgotten what he was there for, but it all came back to him as Dumbledore settled himself in the high chair behind the desk, and Harry fixed with his penetrating light blue eyes. Before Dumbledore could speak another word, however, the door to the office flew open with an almighty bang, and Hagrid burst in, a wild look in his eyes, his Balcava perched on top of his shaggy black head, and the dead rooster swinging from his hand. "It wasn't Harry Potter, Dumbledore," said Hagrid urgently. "I was talking her seconds before that kid was found. He never had time, sir." Dumbledore tried to say something, but Hagrid went ranting on, waving the rooster around him in agitation, sending feathers everywhere. "It can't have been him. I swear it from the Ministry of Magic if I had to." "Hagrid, "Yeah, got the wrong boy, sir. I know, Harry. I never." "Hagrid," said Dumbledore loudly, "I do not think that Harry attacked those people." "Oh," said Hagrid, the rooster falling limply at his side. "Right. I'll wait outside then, headmaster." And he stomped out looking embarrassed. "You don't think it was me, Professor?" Harry repeated hopefully as Dumbledore brushed rooster feathers off his desk. "No, Harry, I don't," said Dumbledore, though his face was somber again. "But I still want to talk to you." Harry waited nervously while Dumbledore considered him, the tip of his long fingers together. "I must ask you, Harry, whether there is anything you'd like to tell me," he said gently. "Anything at all." Harry didn't know what to say. He thought of Malfoy shouting, "You'll be next, mudbloods," and of the polyjuice potion simmering away in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Then he thought of this disembodied voice he had heard twice and remembered what Ron had said. Hearing voices no one else can hear is not a good sign, even in the wizarding world. He thought, too, about what everyone else was saying about him and his growing dread that he was somehow connected with Salazar Slytherin. "No," said Harry, "there isn't anything, Professor." The double attack on Justin and nearly headless Nick turned what had hitherto been nervous into real panic. Curiously, it was nearly headless Nick's fate that seemed to worry people the most. What could possibly do that to a ghost? People had already told each other what terrible power could harm someone who was already dead. There was almost a stampede to book sets on the Hogwarts Express so that students could go home for Christmas. "At this rate, we'll be the only ones left," said Ron, as he told Hermione and Harry. "Us, Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. What a jolly holiday it's going to be." Crabbe and Goyle, who always did whatever Malfoy did, had signed up to stay over the holidays too. But Harry was glad that most people were leaving. He was tired of people skirting around him in the corridors, as though he were about to sprout fangs or spit poison, tired of all the muttering, pointing, and hissing as he passed. Fred and George, however, found all this very funny. They went out of their way to march ahead of Harry down the corridor, shouting, "Make way for the heir of Slytherin! Seriously, evil wizard coming through!" Percy was deeply disapproving of this behavior. "It is not a laughing matter," he said coldly. "Oh, get out of the way, Percy," said Fred. "Harry's in a hurry." "Yeah, he's off to the Chamber of Secrets for a cup of tea with his fanged servant," said George chortily. Ginny didn't find it amusing either. "Oh, I don't," she wailed every time Fred asked Harry loudly who he was planning to attack next, or when George pretended to ward Harry off of a large clove of garlic when they met. Harry didn't mind it. It made him feel better that Fred and George at last thought the idea of being Slytherin's heir was quite ludicrous. But their antics seemed to be aggravating Draco Malfoy, who looked increasingly sour each time he saw them. "It's because he's bursting to say it's really him," said Ron, knowingly. "You know how he hates anyone beating him at anything, and you're getting all the credit for his dirty work." "Not for long," said Hermione in a satisfied tone. "The polyjuice potion's nearly ready. We'll be getting the truth out of him any day now." Okay, I'm stopping there, guys. So they haven't yet taken the polyjuice potion, but they're starting to, at least Dumbledore's on Harry's side that he isn't the heir of Slytherin. So we'll have to see what happens and if Malfoy still is, if we think he might be the heir of Slytherin or not, okay? So happy hat day to you. Happy Wednesday. Kind of funny that Harry tried on the sorting hat on our hat day. I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. I love you all. Have a great rest of your day. Make sure you get outside and make sure you are reading. Bye, guys.